watching closely.
What's the secret, Max?
You just gotta find something you love to do and then do it for the rest of your life.
I don't want to be a product of my environment. I want my environment to be a product of me.
Hello, and welcome to The Establishing Shot, a podcast where we do deep dives into directors and their filmographies. I am your host, Eli Price, and we are here on episode 65 of the podcast with a returning guest from last week and also previous episodes. Christiaan Funkhouser is joining me today. We are in an in-between week. We are in the middle of covering the middle career of Steven Spielberg, his movies of the 90s and 2000s. But this week we are inspired by our Jurassic Park episode from last week, going to do a movie draft. And today we're going to do Science Gone Wrong movie draft. So these will be movies like in Jurassic Park where the scientific advancement, whatever it may be, is going terribly wrong for the world in the movie. So yeah, that's what we're going to be doing. Our movie drafts. Christiaan has done one with me before, so he's familiar. But for those of you that maybe this is your first movie draft episode, basically we go back and forth drafting movies from the category, and then you, the listener, on the social medias, get to decide later on who had the better movie draft. Yeah, it's just a fun little thing. So we get to talk about movies from a specific category, and yeah, have a little competition built into it. But yeah, so here's the thing, Christiaan. I didn't say this before we started.
Oh, great.
I should have.
No.
When I have first-time guests, I let them pick first. But then if they come back again, then I pick first.
Okay.
It's only fair, you know. If you come back on again, you'll get to pick first again.
Okay.
Go back and forth. So
that's fair.
Yeah, I feel like it's only fair, and I guess it's technically my show, so I can do what I want.
You can do what you want. Yep.
And I did let you pick first last time, so
it did not help. So,
yeah, maybe it was a curse and not a blessing. So maybe you'll win this time. I don't think so, but we'll see. You might. I don't know. But yeah, so these the category this week inspired by Jurassic Park. So this will be kind of I guess the other name for this is the Jurassic Park Memorial Draft. We're gonna set Jurassic Park aside. It's gonna be the main honorable mention. So we're not gonna draft it, but we are drafting.
Jurassic Park 2 is on the table. I'm just kidding. I assume the whole franchise is out.
That's what I was thinking, but I guess I didn't really specify that. So if you like half of your movies you were considering were Jurassic Park movies, I guess there's nothing I can do now. But yeah, so these are going to be movies where science in some way has gone terribly wrong. Me and Christiaan were kind of talking about it over text leading up to this, and we were talking about, okay, so it can be maybe biological, as in the case of Jurassic Park. Maybe it can even be technological, scientific advancements going wrong. So it could be like, technology advancements and technology throwing things into chaos. So we talked very minimally about this. So it's kind of up for our own interpretation of what movies apply to this category, and we can get into that as we get through the draft. But personally, I was thinking through movies, and I was thinking, okay, I want to pick movies where this is like actually a major part of the movie, is the science going wrong. And so I tried to stay away from movies where yes, okay, the science went wrong, but technically that's kind of background information. It's not really a focus of the movie. It's just
Okay.
kind of like an explanation of why things are the way they are, but it's not really a theme of the movie or really like matters that much because now you're just dealing with the consequences. Because there's a lot of movies like that I could have had on my list, but that's just a restriction I put on myself. You might have thought about it. How did you think about this as you were preparing? Like, what were you thinking of as you tried to come up with movies?
So for me, as I was thinking about the stuff, a lot of it was the catalyst for the reason the world exists that way, um, or what's happening in it, or what happens in the movie, or during the crux of the movie is science gone wrong. And so part of it is like maybe they're just kind of learning how to adapt within this world where science went wrong and things like that. But then also maybe everything's fine and then science goes wrong at the end.
Sure. Okay.
Or and so a lot of it maybe be kind of like how is that incorporated into the story, and then how did the story work to overcome that?
Yeah. Okay. So you might end up with some movies that I did not consider, or considered and decided to not have it on my list because it sounds like the way you're thinking about it too is like, it's still important if they're dealing with the consequences of it, of like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
And yeah, so I totally get that too. But yeah, so yeah, let's go ahead and jump into it, and we can kind of flesh that out more as we go.
Interesting.
And so yeah, I'm gonna make my first pick. This is a movie that I had been wanting to watch for a few years now, that I had never gotten around to watching, and this was the perfect excuse to finally watch this movie. And it has become my number one pick for this draft. And I'm gonna pick The Fly from 1986 by David Cronenberg. Appropriately enough, the connection point of Jeff Goldblum, who is the star of this movie. Have you ever seen The Fly?
I have
Christian?
not. I think it's going to be too much for me.
It is. Okay, the science goes, let me just tell you, terribly wrong. And,
I know the overall, like,
yeah,
the
he has
synopsis of it and stuff like that.
Teleportation pods.
Yeah.
And so he's kind of come up with a way to teleport things. He's working on how to teleport objects that are alive, getting the computer system to understand how to teleport those objects and not just inanimate objects. And he at one point decides to teleport himself. Little does he know, a fly has flown into the teleporting pod with him. And yeah, I won't get into our main episodes are spoiler. I'm trying not to spoil too much of these movies, but let's just say things go terribly wrong. This movie gets real gross at some points. So if there's a little bit of body horror element in here in this movie, so if you can't handle that sort of thing, I probably don't recommend this movie. But man, it is so well made. The effects are like great. The design of it all is great. Jeff Goldblum is great in it. He just goes manic crazy. Yeah, it's all just really good. And it's just like, to me, it's not just that I thought the movie was phenomenal. It's that it's just like the epitome of this category of science gone wrong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my first pick.
Because I think one of the things with science gone wrong is you've got like, is it just like a natural evolution of the science that happens? Is it intentional evil? Is it unintended consequences? Or in the case of, I think, The Fly, is it an accident?
Yeah. It's kind of an accident / unintended consequences for sure. But it is due to like total hubris and ego. There's also like some like as I feel like David Cronenberg also has like sexual undertones in a lot of his movies too. So there's some of that there too, kind of a examination or critique of masculinity in that way. That's definitely in this movie. So yeah, it's a great movie. Definitely recommend it if you can handle some of the gross body horror stuff. It's not like the whole movie isn't that, but there's a few scenes that are rough. There's a fingernail scene in particular that I'm like, I couldn't look at the screen the whole time. I had to look away for a few moments of that. So if that tells you anything. All right, Christian, where are you going with your first pick?
Oh man, oh my goodness.
Pressure's on.
It is. I would say my first one is going to be oh no, I think it's Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Okay, yeah.
The new one.
That's the first one.
The first one and the new one, yeah.
Yeah. Great pick.
I think it really hits that science gone wrong, because like you've got the people altruistic reasons, we're going to cure Alzheimer's, and then they're testing it on the monkeys, and then the apes, they become smarter.
Yeah.
And then the guy tries to stop. Well, okay, but anyway, it becomes smarter without getting into like all the stuff. And I think it's just one of the and then new advances try, and then it's new advances come in there, but they try to fix it, kind of without trying not to get too spoilery.
Yeah.
Where they try to fix it, but what ends up happening is more and more. Oh, sorry, it goes from an injection to an air.
Yeah.
Whatever that's called.
Air.
Where it's transmitted via air.
Yeah.
And that's how you get all the other monkeys that become smarter. And I think it's just a great. Whereas I think the original one was they just evolved to become smarter and things like that. But in this one, it is because of science, and they're trying to fix this. And then you can see how they're laying the foundation for eventually it happening with turning into the world where Charlton Heston will eventually.
The Planet of the Apes.
Yep. And
yeah, it's a great one for sure. And it kicks off it's actually the weakest, I think, of the three of that trilogy.
Yeah.
In my opinion. And I think I feel like that's the consensus, is it's the weakest of the three.
Because I think
it is the one where the science goes wrong. So that's what I was thinking about when we were talking beforehand. Of like, which one do you take in the franchise, and take the one where the science goes wrong. Yeah, that's exactly the one I was thinking of too. So
okay, yep. And that's part of what I was thinking, because I was like, we said, so do you want to do franchise or?
Yeah.
But that's the one where the science goes wrong, and I think that and then if you're familiar with the movies from back in the 60s, then you know that it gets very wrong.
Yeah.
And we just haven't gotten there yet. But I also think it's a really good reimagining.
Yes.
Of it, to where it's like we're updating it to be more modern, and we're also, because in the old movies they kind of went backwards. Like, here's this, and now we're going backwards to explain how it happened, and then in the new one we're actually starting from the beginning. So I think it can be. I think so. And I think that's one of the things that was important to me, is that it was just as a movie in general, that it kind of respected the source material, and it didn't just rehash the old thing.
Yeah.
So it was unique enough. So Rise would be.
And the Caesar character is just phenomenal.
Yes. Is that the one? That's the one that's done by Circus, right?
Yeah, Circus does Caesar. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just fun. He's a phenomenal actor too.
Oh yeah.
Hi. Quick reminder that yes, you can be a huge help to the production of this show. If you visit establishingshotpod.com/donate, you'll find out how to join the Establishing Shot family through some giving tiers starting as low as $5 a month. You heard that right, only $5 a month. And not only will you be helping me keep the show going, but you'll also get some perks yourself, like early and ad-free episodes, bonus episodes, access to a Discord server where we can chat it up about the show and movies in general, and more. Might even let you choose a movie for me to review for the show. Check out that link in the show notes to learn more. Back to the show.
All right, that was a good pick. I, with my second pick, am going to go with the 2015 film by Alex Garland, Ex Machina. Have you seen this one, Christian? Ex Machina?
Maybe.
It's it's stars Domhnall Gleeson and Oscar Isaac. It's basically this young programmer gets invited or wins a prize to go stay and learn for like a week or so with this, like, I guess, world-renowned programming guy that Oscar Isaac plays. And he gets there and he finds out that he has created this AI woman, and he's basically having him give her I can't remember what they call it in the movie, but he's basically like testing her to see if he thinks she's real. And he knows she's an AI. Like, he tells the Gleason character that she's an AI, but he still wants him to like test her, and basically things go wrong. But I feel like I don't want to get too deep into that because I think this is a really, really, really phenomenal movie. Just the design of it is incredible. It's in his like lab, I guess you would say, for lack of a better term, is in the middle of nowhere, so it's completely isolated. It's just them two, and like the AI woman basically on in the middle of nowhere, so there's nowhere to go, and so the tension is incredibly well crafted. The ideas are really, really intriguing. Just a really, really great movie. So that's I won't get into exactly how things go wrong, but just suffice it to say that they do in fact go wrong.
That is intriguing. Does it, and if it's a spoiler, that's fine too. So avoid it. But does it have anything to do with Deus Ex Machina?
Well, that's the.
Is that kind of where the name kind of comes
that's
from?
That's where the name comes from.
Okay. That's for those who may not know, that's the idea of like there's an impossible situation, right, and then magically something happens that is able to solve that impossible situation.
Yeah, there's an item or there's a person that shows up that acts as the god. It's Latin for God in the machine, or God out of the machine, and it's like something that solves a plot hole or a plot problem. So it's not really that. I think it's just using that Latin out of the machine.
Yeah.
To indicate the idea of personhood. Can a machine have personhood, sort of thing, which is a typical AI question. But anyway, yeah, it's a great movie. So no, it doesn't. I don't think it derives from that plot term.
Okay.
Exactly. But yeah. All right, where are you going with your next pick?
So kind of so this is a rough one. I don't exactly like the movie.
Oh, okay.
But I think it's a great example of it.
Okay.
Stanley Kubrick's 2001.
Okay, yeah.
So the idea with it, the reason why I chose it is because I was doing some thinking about it because I thought and this is kind of spoilery-ish, but in the end, I mean, it's generally fine, right? This is kind of a popular one.
Yeah, I mean,
Because I
if
think
you
that
haven't seen 2001, when did it come out? It's late 60s. Like, you've had plenty of time to see it.
Right after the actual moon landing.
Yeah.
The interesting, there's a whole lot with it, but I don't necessarily enjoy watching the movie, but I appreciate it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
But in the end, what ends up happening is HAL 9000. He's sentient. He's a machine thing, and he ends up kind of. Well, okay. So let me back for a second. So a lot of times in movies where you have like an AI or robots, there's always like laws, like Isaac Asimov's and his 3 laws type thing. This is a situation where the machine was not given any of those laws and is basically almost like a child. And it's given, and so it's, man, we can spoil it, right? We just said that we can.
Well, yeah,
I mean, it's part of why I chose it.
Yeah, basically HAL, turns on his human counterparts for the sake of the mission.
Yeah.
I guess you would say.
HAL was given a secret mission, but he was also told that no one else can know about it.
Yes.
And so where I think it was interesting in the science gone wrong area is because it dealt with like the reality of it. Like it almost like brings the robot into psychosis. Where it's like it has almost like a nervous breakdown of like, I have to keep this secret, number one prime directive, but then also number one prime directive, I'm supposed to help these people. I don't need to finish my another prime directive. I think I need to finish this mission. Mm-hmm. And so he turns on Dave and he ends up doing stuff so he can complete his mission, and then he doesn't know how to respond. So it's almost like giving in that one, it's not so much that Hal is a mastermind of evil that turns bad. It's that he's like a child who's been told not to tell someone something, but then has to tell someone something. And I think so I find like that is a very interesting science gone wrong, because like it doesn't have Isaac Asimov's rules, but then we kind of get to see the conclusion. But then there are other times where you do have Isaac Asimov's rules, and it leads to an even worse thing happening. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of an interesting thing. And of course the movie's shot beautifully, and there's a lot of really interesting. Kubrick is pretty he's good at what he does. Mm-hmm. But I just think that that's and that also gets into, like you had mentioned, with AI, like living, and is it alive and whatnot, and because that's where he's like, I'm not feeling well, Dave, type thing.
Yeah.
I can't do that. And so I think that that's a very intriguing. So that's when we're like, science is fine, and then it goes wrong at the end, but that propels what happens next.
Yeah. And I did think about 2001. It just I don't know. I guess I think about 2001, I guess, differently than like the science and the technology being like a major thing. But yeah, the way you like, your perspective totally makes sense for this category for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, 2001 to me is like a 10 out of 10. One of those 10 out of 10 movies. I think it's incredible. It's an incredible movie. Yeah, and I think I've probably taken it in a draft before too, so good for me to get some other ones out there. And
that's very fair. Yeah.
All right. Number 3. I know I've taken this in a draft before too, but it's just too perfect for this, and it's a movie that I love. It is 1931 Frankenstein, the original, tight 70 minutes of Dr. Frankenstein creating this monster, and this monster trying to figure out what it is. And it's there's just like these moments of just like pure, like there's this moment of the Frankenstein's monster like lifting its hands up and like in agony, and it didn't choose to be created, but here it is, and it has to figure out, like, is it really human? Is it really, what is it? What does it do? How should it interact with the world around it? Just a very, like, to me, like, it's a 1931 movie, so, like, the effects feel old. But even like the design of it is just really, really well done. And I just find, like, the things that it explores really, like, profound, and the imagery adds to that. So I love this movie. If you've never seen this original Frankenstein movie, it's Spooky Month is right here. It's coming, so pick a Friday night to throw Frankenstein on. It's 70 minutes. Come on, it's a tight story. Yeah. I just love Frankenstein. It's a great movie. And the classic Science Gone Wrong.
That very much so.
Yeah.
And I like how it has, I think adding that moral and philosophical thing of, like, is what happened, is it right? And, like, am I a human? What is a human? Like, I think that's that's like sugar on top of the Science Gone Wrong thing.
All right,
which is kind of why I liked Space Odyssey for it, because because I had never thought of it about, like, I'd always just thought that Hal went crazy, and, like, but then I was like, wait a second, wait, oh my. Anyway, man, okay, so I think we would be remiss to not include this one, and so I think I just got to grab it up. Terminator.
The first one?
I like the second one best, but if we go to where everything goes... Well, no, where does it actually go wrong? I guess it goes wrong with Genesis?
Yeah, don't do those ones, though. Do the originals. Do either T1 or T2.
I would... T2 is the one that I grew up on more.
Yeah, sure.
So I would do T2. Let's do T2, because then you get to T1000. So yeah, Terminator. Classic... Technology grows way beyond our means, way beyond our ability to control it. I think doesn't it basically come to the idea that humanity can't be trusted, and that's why.
It's been a long time since I've seen them. I actually watched, like, the first 20 minutes of T2 earlier this week, but I just didn't have time to finish it. So
yeah,
I honestly couldn't say. It's just been too long since I've seen it.
Yeah, same kind of ish. Just kind of, anyway. I actually didn't mind Genesis. I thought it was pretty good, but just that whole thing of we create the thing to help us and to to go through, and then it takes over. We don't know how to control it. We gave too much power over to the thing, and this one, it's unlike where we kind of give it psychosis with 2001. This is one where it becomes malevolent, and tries to take over stuff. And then then the whole thing is our fight to try to stay alive from the purging of it. So I think it kind of hits there's a number of movies that kind of touch with that same thing, but I think I think that's kind of the best of the different examples. So I have a couple that are related to that I think would be good honorable mentions. But so Terminator, I think, is it.
Yeah, that's another one where, like, the way I ended up thinking about it was, like, this feels like more dealing with the results of the Science Gone Wrong, and the Science Gone Wrong being, like, the background information that, like, informs why things are the way they are. But I do appreciate the way you're thinking about it too, of, like, thinking about it in the sense of dealing with the consequences is just as important as, like, what caused it. So
Hello again. Do you know how you can really support the show for free in just a few minutes or less? That's right. Just leave a rating and review on Spotify and Apple, or wherever you listen that might allow for ratings and reviews. These really help the visibility of the podcast. In fact, just hit that pause button right now and drop the review right now. And then you can get back to the show. I'd greatly appreciate it. Okay. I trust that you went and left that rating and review now. Back to the show.
Okay, my next pick. Yeah, I'm going to jump to another franchise and pick a more recent prequel of an old classic that we all know, and I'm going to go with Prometheus.
Oh, interesting.
Which is, the chronologically a prequel to Ridley Scott's Alien and Aliens movie. And so Prometheus is goes back to kind of before humans have found these aliens, and really like Prometheus doesn't even really have the alien from Alien in it. It hasn't developed to that point yet, but basically the whole like premise of Prometheus is there's this team, they find basically a planet that they think is suitable for Earth, suitable for like human life, so they're going to that planet. Come to find out, the head guy of this company is just trying to find out. They think that this is a place where their makers came from. It kind of delves into like aliens created us kind of thing. And he's like, I want to go face my makers and see if they can heal me, because he's on his deathbed. You kind of find that out at some point in the movie. And so there's that element. It's definitely like scientific progress and finding out where we came from. Kind of that ends up going terribly wrong. There's the AI. There's the android guy that's played by played incredibly well by Michael Fassbender, who is one of those actors that like is kind of under the radar, but whenever he pops up, he's like, oh yeah, that guy's like one of the best actors we have.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Prometheus I really, really enjoyed it. And I actually like really, really enjoyed Alien Covenant too, which was the follow-up to this.
That's the newest one, right?
So the one that came out this year is Alien Romulus.
Okay.
And it's kind of like its own thing. It's not, it's got the alien stuff, but it's not a interconnected storyline.
Okay.
Different characters, different part of the timeline kind of thing. But yeah, Prometheus is great. Alien Covenant has a follow-up to this I thought was great. Some people liked it less. I thought it might have been even a little bit better, to be honest. But Prometheus is where it all starts, so that's the one I'm going with. I just really like that whole franchise. It's a great franchise.
Because it kind of bounces around to different like
ideas.
It's not all horror. It's not all suspense. It's also he tries to get with the science of it and tries to explore. Yeah, I agree.
Where are you going to go with your fourth pick?
I need like 6 more picks.
Well, you've got 2, so got to narrow it down.
Okay, so this is one that is. Oh man,
it's hard.
It is. This is one that I think is a wild card, but I think is worth it.
Okay.
The Prestige.
Yeah. Okay.
So
it totally is, and spoiler alert, but we have covered it on the podcast. So.
Well, there you go. Long story short, it deals with like Tesla science and like teleportation and things like that. I think one of the things it's really important, it has that moral kind of dilemma of it, and in the end, we don't know what actually happened with the things. And I think that it's definitely it's not a science. I tried to hit all the different kind of genres of science gone wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is one of those where science is being used for nefarious, potentially evil purposes, but not to affect the world, but for one's
gain.
own personal gain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One's own gain, personal gain and personal ego. And really like one's own personal vengeance against a very like, not vengeance against like society or anything, but just like against this one guy that you don't like.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I had this on my list, but I wasn't going to draft it because I've taken it in a draft before and covered it on the podcast. So I was like, if he takes it, great. If not, I'll just have honorable mention. So I'm glad you took it.
Okay.
I think it totally, I think it totally works for this science gone wrong category.
Because manipulation of science, and Tesla is just a really cool I don't think we do enough to look at like Nikolai Tesla, and like I think there's a lot of stories that can be told using his stuff, because it's just always very. I think they do. I also think I love the idea of the ground like that had the electricity going through it and lit up little things in the yard. Like that scene has always
it's a
stuck
standout
with me
image.
outside of
It's a standout image for sure.
Yeah.
And people forget David Bowie played Tesla in that movie.
Yeah. And as you look at the cast of that, you got David Bowie, Hugh Jackman, the other guy whose name I just forgot.
Christian Bale.
Yeah, and Christian Bale. Oh, and Alfred. His name's not Alfred. He played
Michael
Alfred.
Caine.
Yep. We got star-studded cast there. It's pretty cool.
Yep. Scarlett Johansson.
So that's my science gone wrong because of personal manipulation.
Mm.
That's my ode to Jurassic Park.
Yes. All right. Great pick. That one is I feel like having the Prestige on your list and maybe even Rise of the Planets of the Apes is going to get you a lot of votes.
Yeah.
So,
I'll make it for my next one.
Yeah. Yeah. Your list is looking good as far and T2. Yeah. You might have this one in the bag, to be honest. My picks might be too obscure. But I'm gonna try to change things up and get more popular votes on my side with my last pick. And I'm gonna go with a more like fun family science gone wrong movie. And I'm gonna pick the 1989 movie starring Rick Moranis and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids.
That's a good one.
This is like a big part of my childhood. I loved this movie growing up. And I honestly haven't watched it in a long time, but preparing for this, I was like, oh yeah, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, and now I'm like itching to watch it again.
Yeah.
Just like, yeah, I'm sure I'll watch it again, and it's like, this is corny, but I'm still gonna love it because it was a part of my childhood. You know, if you've never seen it before, Dad creates Shrink Ray. Shrink Ray shrinks kids. Dad knows he shrunk kids and can't find them. Kids have to get unshrunk. Like, that's the movie.
And they have to deal with like being like very small. Like, we're talking like ants are huge compared to them.
Yes.
Type thing. And I think that to me is probably one of the most when the ant crawls over them.
I remember that from my childhood of like, I never saw ants the same way again after I watched that movie.
For sure, 100%.
All right, this is your last pick. Got to make it count.
So this one is a 2016 movie, I believe. And it's taking a different look at science. It's actually literally science going wrong. It is with Jennifer Lawrence and Chris Pratt. It's called Passengers.
Yeah, okay. I've seen that.
The idea with it is that science went wrong. The ship they're on a ship. They're going to a faraway land, and they're in cryostasis. And an asteroid gets through the shielding-ish.
Something like that.
Huh?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, without getting too spoilery. And so the fact that Chris Pratt's character is woken up,
Mhm.
and he has to struggle with what does he do. And he's on this luxury yacht, and so things go around, and it handles things of companionship or lack thereof, human things. It's kind of got that thing from like the 90s. What do you do if you have all the time and the money to do whatever you want to do?
Yeah.
And so it goes in there, but then as it goes on, things keep getting worse and worse and worse. And so then they have to figure out, well, how do we fix this type thing?
Mhm.
And so I think I think that's kind of along the genre of where science was working what it was supposed to, but then just things happened
Yeah,
because
spiraled out of
Yeah.
control. Yeah.
and then it got worse. And there's a really, 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 really cool scene that has always stuck with me, and it is so as they're going through, there's things that spin, and there's a pool, and there's someone swimming in the pool, and then the gravity's lost. They lose gravity in it, and so they're in this bubble of water that's just floating because there's no gravity, and they're trying to get out. And that always just stuck with me. I think it's beautifully shot.
Horrifying.
Yeah, I don't like deep water, and so not being able to get out of the water was interesting. But I think that's a great example of one where science works like it's supposed to, but it can't be the answer to everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, yeah. I don't remember terribly liking that movie a ton, but I haven't watched it since probably it came out. I will shout out my mother-in-law, though she really loved that movie. So shout out to her. So you'll get her vote with that on your list. She votes at all. But yeah, that's it.
Hello there, listener. Don't you ever want more for your life? Don't you ever dream of surpassing the status of just podcast listener? Well, I've got good news. If you head on over to establishingshotpod.com and click the send a voicemail button on the right side of your screen, you can be featured on the podcast. I'd love to hear from you, whether it's a comment in response to an episode you liked, an opinion of mine you disagreed with, or just a question for me. And if you're too shy to have your voice featured, you can always email me at establishingshotpod@gmail.com. Don't settle for just being a podcast listener. Reach for the stars and get featured on The Establishing Shot. Back to the show.
Let's do some honorable mentions before we list out our final picks again. You said you probably had a couple of honorable mentions, a few.
Yes.
What you
I
got?
have many. I'll just Godzilla.
Yes.
I think is a great example of science gone wrong. I decided to kind of move to different genres of science going wrong. But Godzilla is definitely going to be one. The side effects of nuclear attacks.
Yep.
And I think it's very interesting the way that it kind of like shows, oh, nuclear is evil, and then Godzilla is evil, and then he's helping people because nuclear power is good. And then in Godzilla -1, Godzilla's just he's going back to being a monster to do stuff.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great example of science gone wrong. Should I keep going?
He's kind of Godzilla's kind of I've never seen Godzilla as an evil creature. I've always seen him as like the results of, basically just that humans that have taken power too far, and now you've unlocked this force of nature that you can't put back.
Yeah.
That's kind of what he represents in a way. And so he's not so much evil as he's just something that we unlocked that should have never been unlocked. And now you can't just like tell it to go away now. It's out there now.
Yeah.
And it's going to wreak whatever havoc it's going to wreak. Yeah. Yeah, that's I definitely I had that on my list. I've taken it in drafts before, and so I was like, I'm gonna go with some different ones this time. But it
That's
would have
fair.
been one of my top ones, um, if I hadn't taken it in other drafts. So
That's good.
yeah,
Other ones, Gattaca. Are you familiar with that one?
never seen it.
Without spoiling just the overall premise of the science area, it's basically you live in a world where eugenics exists.
Hmm.
So the people with the best genes can do stuff, and it's created a caste system.
Hmm.
And so, but it originally started off with like, oh, we can help you make sure that your baby doesn't have Down syndrome or whatever.
Sure.
And then oh well, actually, we can make sure that it has an IQ of over 200 or whatever the case is.
Sure.
And so then, but it created a caste system where people who aren't biologically engineered, they don't get to have good jobs. And so it follows a person who is not biologically engineered and like them trying to achieve their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was, but it's very like 1990s style, like equilibrium,
Yeah.
post-apocalypse, I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Got any others?
yes. So I chose Rise of the Planet of the Apes instead of I Am Legend, because it kind of fits the same thing. In I Am Legend, they cure cancer by hijacking the measles vaccine.
Yeah.
And it creates a bunch of vampires. Then
This was one of my favorite movies in high school.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I Am Legend. I loved that when I was in high school. I haven't really revisited it since then, but
have you? The extended version, I think, is a lot better.
Okay.
It has an alternate ending, that follows the book more apparently. I, Robot, I think is good because that one has the Asimov's 3 laws. And it also has Will Smith in it. I have a lot of Will Smith movies. And I think it goes into the whole thing of the negative side of the 3 laws. Like maybe the best way to protect humanity is to make sure they don't leave anywhere.
Yeah.
Let's see, another, instead of like War Games or The Matrix, I chose Terminator.
Yeah.
Because I think those are all where like the computer becomes self-aware and malevolent. Malevolent, sorry.
In The Matrix for sure. Yeah.
Let's see. The other one which I had on here, which I almost picked because it's one of my favorite movies, is Tron Legacy.
Okay, yeah. I haven't seen either of the Tron movies, and so I was wondering if you would pick them or yeah.
I
love the soundtrack.
Soundtrack is amazing. I don't have a lot of hope for the new one. So without spoiling anything, the overall thing is you've got either in the first one there's an AI, and in the second one, but in both cases it involves the science of being able to take matter and turn it into information, or programs and stuff like that. And so something happens and they go into the computer world, and the struggle is to try and get out.
Yeah. My brother-in-law was telling me that Tron Legacy feels more like a science gone wrong movie than the original.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the Tron Legacy is one of the greatest sequels that has been made, in the sense that it is it's been like 30 years between the other one, but it's almost like they picked up where it made sense and they respected the original lore. They did great things. They fixed a lot of the problems. They put in a strong female character that is believable and does a great job. Olivia Wilde does a phenomenal job, and the costuming is great. The aesthetics, the music. But I kind of what was my one I did instead of that one? I picked the Prestige instead of that one because I felt that was a thing where you had like this crazy technology that someone could use and manipulate, and it created issues.
Cool.
So, yeah, those would be my. Yep, those are my things.
Cool. Yeah, I have a few. Just to roll through these. I also watched another David Cronenberg movie from 1999 called Existence. It stars Jude Law and Jennifer Jason Leigh. It's spelled Existen. Existence. I think it's actually in the movie they pronounce it Existence. And it's basically Jennifer Jason Leigh is this designer of this game, Existence, on the run from assassins, and Jude Law is this PR guy that's acting as her bodyguard. They're trying to kill her because of this game she's created. These games, you jack into these games basically. Through these little like game pods, and they're like these like weird fleshy little things, and it runs this like umbilical cord looking thing into a bioport like in your spine. That's like,
yeah,
you run it into that. And so it's definitely I really enjoyed it. I was totally intrigued to see where it was going to go. And it's definitely an example of like, okay, when you're using like games and virtual reality, which is a technological advancement, to see, to escape reality, and there's layers to that. And then like, do you lose your all sense of reality? What's the real world? Can you tell when you're in the real world? Like it goes into all that. I really enjoyed it. It was a really good movie. Definitely recommend checking that out. It is David Cronenberg, so there is like a little gross stuff in there, but nowhere near as bad as The Fly. So, I thought about The Invisible Man, the 30s one.
Yes.
Is good. Just kind of a classic science gone wrong story adaptation of the book. There's
the classic Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, but I hadn't seen it, so I couldn't
haven't
put it.
seen it either.
But that's in the movie. I watched the synopsis of it. But in the movie, the guy tries to separate out his evilness, and what it does is it creates a second personality.
Yeah.
And so, and he can't control it. So it's very much science gone wrong. But I haven't seen it, so I can't.
Yeah, I haven't either. I also watched like 30 minutes of Island of Lost Souls, which is an adaptation of the Island of Dr. Moreau. I didn't get to finish the movie though, so I couldn't tell you if I would have taken it or not. But I do plan on finishing it. And so, another one was Moon. Have you seen Moon?
I have not.
With Sam Rockwell and Kevin Spacey plays the voice of the AI. I think it would be too much of a spoiler to explain what goes wrong here. So I'm not going to go into details. But that's one I thought about. It's a really good one. I think you would enjoy that one.
Moon.
Yeah. I had thought about some of yours. Some of yours, like The Matrix and stuff, I felt more like the science gone wrong was like the background information.
Yeah.
And so it didn't fit into the restrictions I put on myself. Another one that kind of feels like that, that I wouldn't have picked because it doesn't fit the restrictions I put. But if I was going to fit an animated movie in, there's WALL-E, you could argue would fit in.
Okay, I could see that.
But the one I was gonna pick, if I allowed myself to, was The Mitchells versus the Machines. Have you seen that?
I don't think I have.
I think it's a Netflix movie, animated movie. It came out a couple years ago, and it's really good. I highly recommend checking it out. It's basically these robots like start trying to take over And there's this it's like a family comedy,
Mhm.
animated comedy drama where this family's like trying to make it through this robot takeover.
Yeah.
It's good. Yeah. I mean, there's you could say Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Okay, yeah,
Is
because Ultron.
yeah,
Yep.
Ultron.
What do you think about
I guess Tenet technically fits to, if you were going to go with another different Nolan movie than The Prestige. The technology of going backwards in time, it's gone kind of terribly wrong with
Oh, okay.
all that. The only other one I'll mention, and I'll be done, is there's a movie that I loved that came out this year called The Beast. It's a French language film with Léa Seydoux as the star of it. But it's in like a near future where AI has kind of like taken over most jobs. And really the only way to get a good job and have a good life is to go through this process where your DNA is purified, where you don't really have emotions. And then the AI will let you have like a better job and better life and stuff. And so, but the way the movie is structured, it's like it takes this woman through her past lives to purify her
Yeah.
DNA. And so it's like 3 different time periods. And
Interesting.
there's this same guy that pops up in all 3 that she's interested. It's a very mind-bending movie. I thought it was really, really good. So I wanted to shout that out because it's kind of a science gone wrong movie too. So
That made so the other one of the ones I was thinking of was Equilibrium, where they go in and like they take the pill to lose all emotions. Kind of
yeah.
about how science was used to pacify the masses. I think that was anyway, so that was another one where it seemed, but I felt like some of the other ones were a lot stronger.
Yeah, same.
And more focused on science, the science going wrong.
Yeah, for sure. Well, yeah, I mean, those are all really good suggestions, good honorable mentions. We could probably go on thinking about these for a while, but let me go ahead and read back what our final lists were one more time before we go. So Christian ended up with Rise of the Planet of the Apes, 2001: A Space Odyssey, Terminator 2: Judgment Day, The Prestige, and Passengers. I ended up with The Fly, Ex Machina, Frankenstein, Prometheus, and Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. So great list. We'll let the people decide. So be looking for that on. I usually try to post the polls on Mondays, so try to look for that on the social media. I post them on pretty much all of the platforms. So look for those there. Vote. Next week we are going to be getting into the other 1993 movie from Steven Spielberg and Schindler's List. So look forward to that. But yeah, Christian, why don't you share really quickly where people can follow you and see what you're up to again?
Yeah. So once again, thank you for having me. If anyone's interested, they can go on X or Twitter. Dancing Fox on X is my X handle, I guess. You can also check out the website at dancingfox.studio or any of my socials: Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, dancingfox.studio. I'm still building everything up, so be patient if you don't see anything, but the X is going strong, so
great.
We're on there.
Cool. Yep. I'll make sure to link all those in the episode description so you can find them there. But that is all we have for this week. I've been Eli Price for Christiaan Funkhouser. You've been listening to The Establishing Shot. We will see you next time.
Bye.
We were happy here. For a little while.
this way. Better to be king for a night than schmuck for a lifetime.